This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles.
It is Cowboys week. Greg, let's start here. How good are the Cowboys?
They're pretty good, Nick. I mean, they're better than a lot of incarnations of this team that we've seen in recent years. Certainly a vast departure from the Jason Garrett years. Much improved from Mike McCarthy's first season. This is a pretty formidable team, and I think the thing that stands out when you watch them on film is they're almost the anti-Patriots in a sense, Nick, in that there's speed all over the place.
Yeah.
Probably the only place I would say that they lack speed when I watch them is tight end. They're a little bit ordinary at tight end. You're still effective, but they're their receivers. I mean, Amari Cooper isn't the fastest guy in the world, and I've never been the biggest Amari Cooper fan. I think that he checks out at times when things get tough, but in terms of route running and professional receiving, he's great. CD Lamb brings the explosive element. They have the running game. The offensive line is not as good as it used to be, Nick, but the running game, the way that Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator there, has worked it is very impressive. And they have two running backs. I'm sure there are Patriots fans who are out there who are like, oh, I remember what it was like to have two running backs that you could use and be very effective and not have to worry about who was in the doghouse or who was fumbling this week. But between Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard, two excellent backs, a little bit different styles, so they're hard to adjust to. Pollard's a little bit more of a scat back. And then defensively, I think the thing that stands out is just how fast they play, Nick. I mean, I think in a lot of ways, they're sort of the anti-Patriots. It's like they're, what was it called in Seinfeld when they were the Bizarro? They're the Bizarro Patriots.
Yeah.
In that they're like, you have the neophyte pocket quarterback, you have the experience, somewhat experienced, athletic, explosive quarterback in Dak Prescott. You have a full house backfield. You have weapons who work well within the system out their rear end. On defense, you have speed. The Patriots have none. I will say the Patriots are probably better on the defensive interior when all things are equal, when they're playing well. And, the secondary can be challenged. I mean, they have Trayvon Diggs, who leads the league in interceptions at cornerback. The Patriots have J.C. Jackson, so they're both sort of in the same ballpark. But, yeah, in a lot of ways, I think they're the Bizarro Patriots, and this is going to be a very tough challenge.
Yeah, they got good talent on both sides of the football, especially offensively. You highlighted some of those guys. We'll get more deeper into that, or we'll get deeper, not more deeper into that in a couple of minutes. But I also think, the coordinators deserve a lot of love here on this team, too. I think Kellen Moore does a tremendous job with the offense. We'll talk about that more. And Dan Quinn, a guy that was much maligned after his time in Atlanta, he's kind of flipped the script on this defense. We'll get into that as well. Do you feel when you watch these guys, Greg, that they're like the same old Cowboys, or do you feel like there's some difference here?
I feel that there's a little bit difference. I mean, look, Mike McCarthy, and I love Mike. I covered him in Green Bay. I have a personal fondness for Mike, as a person. I've always been critical of him as a coach, especially in his game management. Sometimes he gets a little bit too cocky, but in the game management, Nick, is still an issue. If anybody's watched any Cowboys games, I mean, they have a lot of bad fluffs in terms of game management, and so that's an advantage for the Patriots that they can exploit. That being said, Mike McCarthy has come into, or they've had two matchups with the Patriots in the past 8 years when Mike was with the Packers. Mike brought Matt Flynn in. Aaron Rodgers was hurt, and they almost beat the Patriots that day. That was the Dan Connolly kickoff return game,
Oh,
if
yeah.
I remember correctly. And then a few years ago, we did get the Rodgers-Brady matchup that we were all looking for finally, and the Packers came out ahead. So, and Bill has talked glowingly about Mike McCarthy in the past, and the way he greets him at games, you could tell that he respects Mike McCarthy. I do think that what you brought up about the coordinators, I think that Kellen Moore has sort of kept Mike McCarthy from being too much Mike McCarthy. I think
Yep.
there's a lot of fingerprints. I mean, what he's done with that offense, the creativity that he's brought, that was part of Mike's problem down the stretch in Green Bay. They got
Yep.
way too stale on offense. They ran last week. They ran some nifty fake shotgun play. I don't even know what it was, but it was nothing Mike McCarthy came up with. I could tell you that much. And so Kellen Moore's done a great job. And Nick, here's probably the most surprising thing to me watching them on film, and we'll get into it a little bit deeper when we talk about the defense. But Dan Quinn, we all know Dan Quinn, former Seahawks cover 3 defensive coordinator, Atlanta Falcons head coach, managed the game terribly in the Super Bowl against the Patriots, blew it, not just running the ball and kicking a field goal. We all know that. We all know the scheme, and I've written about it for years, probably more than anybody else, about how the Patriots basically stomped and killed the Seattle version of the cover 3. Quinn's evolved a lot. They play a lot more man than they used to. I would say that cover 3 is probably their 3rd or 4th highest repped defense. I would say they're a lot more cover 1 man. I would say you see more cover 4 quarters coverage than you do cover 3. So they've evolved a lot, and yet Dan has still, another guy that I really respect a lot. Dan has, the way he's done it has enabled the Cowboys to play faster on defense, and it's embraced their speed, and so they're not fighting it, and they're using it, and it's tough.
When I talk about the same old Cowboys, I just feel like that's more a postseason thing than regular season thing.
Yeah.
I think regular season wise, this team, as we've talked about already, is talented. They're easily the best team in that division. And I think they'll be in the conversation as we get closer to the playoffs as a team that's dangerous. I have the Mike McCarthy questions. I have seen again this year, as you mentioned, kind of hit on way too many boneheaded decisions that make absolutely zero sense. His clock management is awful. He doesn't really understand when to use timeouts, when not to use timeouts, the manipulation of the clock, how to maybe handle a game late in the game if it's close. Do you run? Do you pass? When do you do that? I just think one of the biggest obstacles for this team as they get into the postseason, because I think if they stay healthy, they're winning this division and they get into the playoffs. One of the biggest obstacles is absolutely going to be Mike McCarthy. That's actually my biggest question about this team right now. Is the head coach, is he going to screw it up? I mean, you remember Seattle, Green Bay years ago. That was a disastrous second half for him when he decided, even though he had Aaron Rodgers on the road and they had a lead, that he was going to try to run the football a billion times and allowed Seattle to come right back into that game. So I always have the Mike McCarthy question, and that will remain. Let's look at, one more point about Dan Quinn. You mentioned this, how he's evolved, and the story is fascinating. He pretty much walked into Dallas and said, hey, what I did with Atlanta, what we did in Seattle, we're throwing it out. We're throwing that stuff in the garbage for the most part. And what he did was he actually asked his defensive coaching staff to build the playbook with him. And what they did was they took a look at that roster and they accentuated guys' strengths, which is what you brought up, the speed element of the defense. And he said, no, we're going to mold and craft this playbook around the players and who we have and what they do best. And I think he has taken big time steps from when we've seen him the last time as a DC and even as a head coach in Atlanta. Let's drill down more on this offense. What do you see when you look at this Dallas offense from the offensive line out to the wide receivers?
Okay, so with the offensive line, we all know that, I don't know, as recently as 4 or 5 years ago, or even a little bit longer, and I actually went to Sports Illustrated to do a story on this, is that they had the best offensive line in the league.
Yep.
The personnel has changed a lot. Travis Frederick, I've, there's been a couple of injuries and retirements. Like, it's hard for me to keep track, but the guys like Travis Frederick aren't there anymore. I will say that, Tyron Smith, the left tackle, when he's healthy, he's still probably the best left tackle in the game. The problem with him is he's never healthy.
Yeah.
He's not on I just looked, he's not on the injury report this week, so that's good for them. He's slowed down a little bit, so he's not quite as dominating, but he's incredible. I mean, I just I want to see like Chase Winovich, like, just being used to go up against Tyron Smith to take him up, and it's just like, running when you're a little kid running into your big brother and you just keep getting knocked down. That's what this is going to be like. I think that the left guard, Connor Williams, has done a good job. He's solid. Zach Martin, we all know the right guard has been elite for a very long time. He's back to playing at that level. The guy who's been the biggest surprise, Terrence Steele, has sort of been an injury replacement, and he's been a revelation at right tackle. Now, I won't tell you he's the greatest thing since sliced bread, but he's pretty damn good. I would say the weakness in the Dallas line, and I think where if you're the Patriots, you're looking to exploit them, is at center with Tyler. I don't even know how to pronounce it. Bates at center. He's a little bit weak, a little bit slow.
Yes.
But it's all coordinated really well. There aren't any huge weaknesses up front, but they will have some busts every now and again. The running game is the big thing that we talked about. Dak is exactly the type of quarterback that the Patriots always have issues with. Deshaun Watson, those athletic quarterbacks who are probably better throwers than they are runners. The Patriots have always had issues with those guys, especially when plays break down. The running game with Zeke and Tony Pollard, it's a two-headed monster. And if, they are not afraid to go away from Zeke. This is, Nick, you probably watch more Cowboys games than I did in the past. I mean, there were times with Jason Garrett when, it's Ezekiel Elliott. So he's Zeke and he's getting paid the most money. So we're just going to run him into the line no matter what. And no matter what it does to they don't do that anymore. If it ain't working with Zeke and they need a faster back, Tony Pollard's going to get more carries in this game and he's going to get more touches in the pass game. CD Lamb, he's talented, inconsistent. He'll have some drops. Cooper, great route runner. I question his toughness a little bit. Cedric Wilson in the slot is pretty good. Good speed, a 4.48 guy coming out. And the tight end, Schultz, solid, slow. I would say he's a lesser sort of Hunter Henry type tall guy that you're going to have to match up with. That's a little bit tough for the Patriots' smaller safeties like Duggar and Phillips. You might want to think about using, I don't know if I want to say this, Juwan Williams on him a bit at times just because of the height matchup there, but a very formidable unit, Nick. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the offensive line is not top 3 worthy right now, but they're much better than they were last year. And they've been pushing piles, and they've been doing some hard work up front. I think their O-line is good. It's certainly been better than the Patriots O-line early this season. Zeke Pollard, that combination is deadly if you don't contain them at least somewhat. I do think, Pollard is more likely to hurt you on the perimeter. He's more able to, get outside and kind of explode than Zeke is. But don't get it twisted. Pollard can run between the tackles, and he's done that the last couple of weeks. It's just, they will utilize him on the outside more than they utilize Zeke. Zeke can catch the football. Pollard can catch the football. Pollard, the difference with him as far as being, like a scat back type, people sometimes will say, third down back. He's not the best blitz pickup guy. So Zeke is usually out there on third down, but their running backs are really good. Cooper's good. Lamb is explosive. You got to make sure that you GTFB against that guy. Schultz, I agree with you. He's not explosive, and it really stands out when you watch this offense because everybody else is.
Yeah.
But Schultz is a guy that can kill you if you don't pay attention to him. And so the Patriots have to make sure that they have him bottled up somehow, some way, because he's the dude on Sunday that on a 3rd and 7 that's critical, he pops one open for 15 yards and you're shaking your head. So you got to keep an eye on Schultz. And I also like that you brought up Cedric Wilson because he kind of explodes at me on the television when he gets the football. He's very difficult to deal with because of his quickness. And that's another guy. If you're too focused on Coop and Lamb, Schultz and Wilson can hurt you, and then they run the football. So there's a lot of ways this offense can attack you. Kellen Moore does a great job with pre-snap movement. Some trickery, as you brought up. This is not Mike McCarthy's offense. This is Kellen Moore's offense. And I think he gets more creative by the day, and he trusts in Dak. And if you slept on Dak, you slept on the wrong guy. He's a bona fide top 6 to 8 quarterback in this league. He might be just outside the top 5. He's really good. He's really smart. He's really athletic, and he's big. This offense is tough. How about the defense, Greg?
Yeah, and one thing I did want I just want to talk about Dak for a second, and maybe we do defense after the break, but to expand on Dak, because I think it's worth it, and I think he's earned it. And you sort of touched on it. I've been immensely impressed with the way he's come back from, a devastating ankle injury. I mean, I couldn't believe that after he didn't even practice all that much in training camp. If you watch Hard Knocks, I'm sure a lot of people did. For him to get out there opening night against the defending Super Bowl champions, and basically they're like, we're not going to run the ball. We're just going to go shotgun 5 wide with Dak. And he lit him up.
Yep.
I mean, that was incredible to me. And that wasn't just a one-off. That's what they've been doing. He's been incredible. I mean, I would say, it's between him and Russell Wilson as sort of the biggest quarterback draft misses, since Brady. As far as NFL teams, and look, I was a little bit higher on Dak. I definitely miss on Russell Wilson. I'll freely admit that. And at least I was in company with, every NFL team, including the teams that picked them, because they didn't think that they were going to be any instant starters anytime soon. But
Right.
he's just I think that, Nick, you talked about, are they the same old Cowboys and that sort of thing. I think that the difference is Dak. Like, I think the team takes the persona of Dak Prescott, and that guy is tough as nails. He's confident. He doesn't get down very often at all. He's not perfect, but man, I think, like, when you look for a leader to lead your football team, like in the modern age, I think that Dak is like one of those guys in the top 3 that you look at and they'll be like that and say, that's what it looks like. That's what it's supposed to look like. And I think he's been the biggest difference maker to me. I think Mike is Mike, but with Dak running the room, it really helps. And it's almost, I think you could say it's almost similar to Brady and Belichick, where, Belichick is Belichick, and we all know he's great. But, like, having Brady to lead the team, and that the whole team can say, all right, we're down or whatever, we're struggling, but Dak's going to get us out of it, or Tom's going to get us out of it. I think that's invaluable, and I think he's one of those rare guys that has that.
And I don't want to get too deep into, personal life and all of that on this podcast, but if you want to do the research, Dak has been through some stuff. And
Mhm.
I think those personal things, losing somebody close to him, I think those kinds of things build character. And I think, when Dak plays, he plays for the enjoyment of the game. It sounds cliche, but it's true. He kind of embraces challenges. It's very tough to rattle that guy. And he's willing, you said it, he's tough. He's willing to take hits. In that
Mhm.
Tampa game, after that ankle surgery, the guy gets carted off the field. His foot's pointing the wrong way. First game back, almost nothing in camp and preseason. And guys are diving at his legs and feet. He's getting hit, and he's standing in the pocket tall, just drilling accurate passes. And it just shows you. I mean, there was zero rattle to his game when he came back. I think he is as legit can be. I don't think he's a top 3 or 4 guy, but he's really good. He's in that next tier.
Can some of our, loyal subscribers, like, give us, some more ratings, some more reviews over at the podcast? I was perusing the other day. It's been a little bit of a dry spell for, some reviews. So, go in there. That helps us out, helps out the podcast. We were just nominated for an award. I don't know what award it is.
Neither do I.
But yeah, but we'll let you guys know. So if you need to vote on it or anything like that, we're excited about that. And thank you for your patronage, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, no doubt. Rate and review. And Dallas defense, Greg, what do you see on the film?
Fast, Nick. I'm very impressed with how fast they are. I was not prepared to see that. And the thing is, they've been playing well, and they don't even have Lawrence,
Yeah.
the defensive end. I mean,
Yep.
DeMarcus Lawrence is one of the best players in the league at his position. They had him for one game, 43 snaps total. And so they've had to get creative. Like, they've had, Micah Parsons, who is a rookie, selected 12th. I think we talked about him often in the draft process, including I think he was at one point, I don't know if it was that day, it was my projected pick for the Patriots. That I thought that if he got to 15, or he might be a guy the Patriots thought about moving up a little bit for, that it would be Micah Parsons, because I just think he would be, and look at it now. Not really much in the middle of the linebacking core for this team. I mean, Jawan Bentley's in a contract year. Dante Hightower's in a contract year. Didn't start playing well till last week. Kyle Van Noy is not the same guy, at least right now. If you had a guy like Micah Parsons in the middle, my preference was to go a Micah Parsons first and then trade up to get Mac Jones in the bottom of the first. That was my preference, or possibly a Davis Mills later. But Micah Parsons is just, the dude is fast as hell. He's big. He's played defensive end. He has not done that. So he did that week 2. He played 39 snaps at defensive end. That was almost all of his snaps. 33 of 37 were on the defensive line in week 3. Week 4, that changed to 16 out of 68 he played on the end. And last week he only played 3 snaps on the end, so he's back at linebacker for the Cowboys. But they have speed all over the place. Trayvon Diggs, Stefan's little brother, he leads the league in interceptions, and he's got great ball skills. Of course, they say all cornerbacks are failed wide receivers because they don't have the hands to be wide receivers. He does have good ball skills, but he's a bit boom or bust. Like, he does give up plays. He's not a shutdown cornerback. I would not be afraid of him. You don't want to get stupid with the ball, and Mac Jones doesn't want to float any balls in his area because he will pick them off. But I think that the Cowboys are really good. I think they're pretty weak on the defensive interior, so I would like to see the Patriots run the ball this game, but we'll have to see how that all works out.
Yeah, I mean, Parsons, like you said, had been moving around. He's a little bit more steady now at linebacker the last couple of weeks. I do think he might be a little bit vulnerable in the passing game. I think you can take advantage of his aggressiveness at times, because let's not forget, he's still kind of learning the position, which is crazy. In 2 or 3 years, if he continues this kind of trajectory, he's going to be one of the best linebackers in the game, if not the best linebacker, if he keeps doing what he's been doing, because he's only been playing for a couple of years. He sat out all last year. He opted out at Penn State. So he's just very talented, but I do think you might be able to hit him a couple times with the passing game. Diggs, I think, is good, if not really good. He's kind of climbing up the charts as far as cornerbacks. He does give up a play or two, but he's really tough. And you mentioned it. This defensive line has been surprisingly good. When DeMarcus Lawrence went down, I said, oh, man, this defense is in some trouble. The defense wasn't supposed to be very good to begin with, and now you lose Lawrence. But Dan Quinn and company, they've done a pretty good job of supplementing that defensive line, doing some different things. I don't think this defense is a top-notch defense. I think they're better than expected, so there's some hyperbole surrounding this defense. They do have some guys that can play, though, and that are fun to watch. All right, so we take a look at this Cowboys team. We've broken down offense. We've broken down defense, big picture. Greg, if you're walking in as Bill Belichick on Sunday, how do you think you can beat the Dallas Cowboys?
It's a really good question, Nick. And I think, first of all, you have to start with, all right, how are we going to limit them point-wise? Because we know that the Patriots, as of right now, they don't really score at a high clip.
Right.
You're hoping to keep the game in the 20s. How do you do that? I mean, I think you play a lot like you did against Tampa. I think you try to play a lot of ball possession. I think that when you look at defending the Cowboys defense, you're going to have to stop the run, first of all.
Yep.
But you also don't want to give up the big plays. I
Yep.
think, and the problem is, I think you're just going to play. I think you're going to play a lot of zone in this game. I think you're going to be conservative in the back end. I think you're just going to try to not give up any huge plays in the passing offense, because the problem is against a guy, and this is where the Patriots run into problems, is because they for years, I don't know, 6-7 years running now, they've been predominantly a man cover team. But if you man cover a guy like Dak Prescott or Deshaun Watson or Josh Allen. Guys who, as soon as they see the defensive backs or the linebackers turn around to go into man coverage, they're just going to take off and run. And so you have issues. Now, I do think having Jamie Collins back helps, because in the past, the Patriots have used him as a spy against these type of guys. I wouldn't say it's gone well. He's been one of the guys used against Deshaun Watson. I don't like to get into the whole spy thing, because then now it's a one-on-one game, and I don't think many people are beating Dak, even though Dak's not a big run guy anymore, especially after the ankle. He wants to throw from the pocket. He wants to be a pocket quarterback. So I think you let him do that, but I think you play conservative in the back. You just try to stay over the top. You might even go to some cover 3 and stuff like that. He'll pick you apart in the zone. I know that. But man, it's the alternative. I think you're just trying to make them go 12, 13, 14 plays down the field as best as you can. But it's very difficult. And, so I think for the Patriots, a lot of this is going to be on the offense. I think that, while Dallas is fast, while they are explosive on defense and they turn the ball over, I think they have 13 turnovers this year, which is almost unheard of for them. In recent years, they wouldn't get 13 in 2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah, that's a lot of
one. Yeah, and forget 13 in 5 games. They have to take care of the ball. Mac has to take care of the ball better this week. Throw some balls away if you have to. Do not throw into coverage if you're under heat. And I think that they're going to have to. I think they can run the ball in this game. It would be nice to see that come back a little bit more. But I think Mac's going to have to play ball control, short passing game, and try to take some shots when needed. And I think that Josh McDaniels and company can figure out, all right, we'll be able to get a couple shot plays, because the Cowboys do give up some big plays. So I think the Patriots need to Josh McDaniels needs to be on his shot game this week.
Defensively, I think you'll see a lot of what the Patriots have done against Patrick Mahomes in the past. What we saw, as you mentioned, with Tom Brady and Tampa. I think Belichick is going to force this team to execute consistently to score their points. He's going to say, listen, if you're going to kill us, you're going to kill us death by paper cut. You're going to have these 10 to 14 play drives, these time-soaking drives that you have to execute consistently, or you're not going to score on us. I think that's what he's going to force. He's going to force the patience from Dak, like he forces patience from Mahomes, and he forced patience from Brady at times on Sunday night a couple weeks ago. You mentioned this. They have to limit the run. They have to limit the big plays. They have to be disciplined on defense. That's the word I keep coming back to, discipline. You can't get caught up in some of the misdirection, pre-snap motion that Kellen Moore does. You can't bite on one of these trick plays and give up a 60-yard bomb. You have to be disciplined. I'm talking to you, Devin McCourty. You've got to be able to make sure that you get back and not give it up. So limit the run, limit the big plays, force them to execute consistently for all 4 quarters. And for the Patriots offense, I think you can run the football, as you mentioned, Greg. I also think you can attack these linebackers in coverage.
Yeah.
I would love to see the running backs out there getting some action in the passing game. I would love to see the tight ends, especially Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry. These are the kinds of games that they're paid for. Dallas doesn't have great safeties. Parsons is still young. He's going to make a mistake or two. Leighton Vander Esch is okay. But I think you can take advantage of this team in the middle of the field and down the seams. This should be a game where Jonnu Smith and Henry show up. And if Henry plays as well as he did last week, that'll be a great sign. If Jonnu can look alive for all 4 quarters, that would be good. But I think that's how you have to approach this game. All right, before we give you our pick, quick 2-minute drill, no more than a minute on each of these, Greg. Your thoughts on Darrelle Revis saying that the Patriots' success is 100% Tom Brady.
Look, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. It's Revis. He's a mercenary. He was here for a cup of coffee. He accomplished what he came here for, which was he got paid decently for 1 year. He was able to earn back his title as best cover corner in the league. He got a big contract out of, was it the Jets that he went to next again? I think it was.
I think so, yeah.
and he got a huge contract out of them. He got fat, he got happy, he cashed out, and he was done. I think he made it. I think he ended up in Kansas City for something. I don't
He
know,
did. He did.
but look, it's not surprising. Darrelle Revis is one of the Darrelle Revis is Revis Inc. And so his whole business plan is the power of the player. He thinks that the players should make all the money. I'm not saying he's wrong, and he successfully engineered it so that he was basically his own sort of team in terms of every year he got paid top of the market for year upon year. He was the first player to really do that. So of course he's going to say that Tom Brady, it was 100% Tom Brady. He doesn't want to give any teams, any coaches, anybody any credit. He thinks it's the players like himself who make all the money in this game and should get all the money in this game.
I just find it fascinating and kind of funny because by saying it's 100% Brady, he is, pretty much crapping on his own impact. If it's all Brady, it's all the offense.
Yeah.
If it's not Belichick, it's not the defense. So apparently, Darrelle Revis, you didn't have as much impact as we thought you did winning that Super Bowl. So congratulations. Maybe you should just give your ring to Tom Brady. Onwenu back at practice today. What do you do with him on Sunday?
Great question. I need to see what he looks like in practice this week. I mean, I think so Onwenu's back. Wynn is not back. Trent Brown is on IR.
Yep.
Shaq Mason, was he back? I'm looking at
I think the only guy
Shaq
back
Mason did not participate on Wednesday. He's still dealing with his abdomen, so that's not a good sign for him being back. I think all things being equal, and he practiced fine, and he didn't have COVID, and he doesn't have any issues with that. I think for this week, he goes back to left guard. I think you put Ted Karras in at right guard. And I think that, you look at the same tackles again. I think Kajust on the right side. I think Huron on the left side. And, you go from there. I think that those guys, Huron had a really good game last week too. I think that those guys earned another look. Josh McDaniels did give them a lot of help. He doesn't want to have to do that, but that's where they are right now.
Last one. We haven't talked about this week, but it's the biggest story in the NFL. Any thoughts on the Jon Gruden / WFT investigation and Gruden's resignation and kind of just the situation in Vegas and the fact that the NFL is saying, we didn't leak the emails and we're not going to share any more with you?
Right. Yeah, a few thoughts on that. Number one, Gruden had to go. I mean, you can't.
Yep.
While I don't like that his emails when he was basically a private citizen, which you think you should be entitled to some privacy, that they got out. He had to go. I mean, what was in there was disgusting, and nobody can really condone it, and you certainly can't tolerate it as a leader. When you're a leader of an organization, a leader of men, and not even to mention that Carl Nassib, who's on his team, came out as gay, one of the first players to do so in the NFL, and for Gruden to use all that language in there, it's not unique to Gruden in the NFL circles. Trust me, there are a lot of Neanderthal older coaches in the NFL, unfortunately, and those guys don't have to change because they're sort of inoculated. My second thought on this is it's unbelievable to me that the NFL gets to sit there and they have all these emails and they get to selectively leak whatever they want. I think it's
650,000 emails.
It's ridiculous. I mean, there's probably a lot of owner emails in there, and
Yep.
trust me, those guys can be even worse than the Neanderthal coaches. I think that I thought it was interesting time. My first thought, Nick, when the first leak came out about DeMaurice Smith, and that's when this whole thing started. I don't know if you noticed, but it was very interesting in the timing of it. So to people unfamiliar, and you probably aren't familiar with this because who the hell cares about NFLPA and union talk? But DeMaurice Smith was under assault.
Yep.
In his union, where it went to there was a vote among membership about he needed a new contract. There was a split vote, and it had to go to another vote the next day, or else DeMaurice Smith might have been out on the street right then and there. And right around that time when he was embattled, they all of a sudden leaked these emails that Jon Gruden, the Michelin tire, the terrible emails, the racist emails, those emails were leaked. And to me, I don't know this, but to me, reading the lay of the land, to me, those were selectively leaked by the NFL to garner support for DeMaurice Smith. I mean, once those came out, it's not like the NFLPA could just fire DeMaurice Smith. They would look like they
Awful.
weren't backing him. Yeah,
Yep.
they would look terrible. And it was almost like the NFL orchestrated. They're like, well, we want DeMaurice Smith where he is. As we're doing these sort of TV deals and things like that, we want DeMaurice Smith there. He's friendly to us. That's why he's under assault. And his union is that a lot of players, including Richard Sherman, and a lot of prominent players think that he made too good of a deal this last time. So he was under assault for that. And now the NFL conveniently gets him at least in his spot for another year largely because of those emails. My third and final thought is I understand the outcry about like the NFL needs to do this. They need to release the emails. They need to do that. Did you guys not learn anything from Deflategate? Like, stop. This is not the real world. This is not government. There aren't sunshine laws. It's the NFL. They could do whatever the hell they want, whenever the hell they want it. For you to stomp and say they should do this or that, they don't care. They are going to do what's in the NFL's best interest all the time. And it's certainly not leaking more emails about their owners or prominent players or prominent coaches that they want in the league. They're not going to do anything. So just stop your huffing and puffing because it ain't going to change.
Two thoughts on this. You said most of how I feel, but just to drill down on the timing of it, not only was the Friday timing, entertaining, but then they leaked the emails about Gruden, the first set of emails that were like, hey, Gruden's a racist. All right. So they leaked that out and they pretty much show the world that Gruden is a racist. That's on Friday. You go through the weekend, the Raiders don't do anything. They decide to just kind of sit back because Mark Davis is one of the most useless owners in the world. Gruden is pretty much the owner in Vegas at that time. So everybody just kind of sits on their hands. They don't do anything. Gruden goes and coaches on Sunday. And it's almost like the NFL said, all right, so we leaked the first couple of emails showing your head coach and shot caller as a racist. You guys didn't do anything about it. We'll give you until like Monday close of business. If there's nothing said or done to Jon Gruden, then we're going to leak something else. You get through Monday, close of business, nothing is said or done by the useless Mark Davis, and then the NFL's like, okay, since you did not want to act on the racist card that we pulled on him, here is the evidence that he is also a misogynist and he is also a homophobe. So there you go. There's the triple threat. Your head coach and shot caller is a racist, misogynist, and homophobic. And then the Raiders were like, okay, now we got to do something. There's no doubt the NFL leaked this stuff. There's no doubt they timed it out the way they did. It's the same way how they do the news dump on Friday, late Friday. And it's also, the thing about this is that, again, this is the NFL passing the buck to the individual team. They're doing this to Houston with Deshaun Watson. The NFL doesn't want to move on Watson. They don't want to make any kind of decision regarding Watson, so they're kind of just staying out of it, and they give Houston the crap sandwich and say, you guys figure it out. So now Houston is paying Watson to not play and to be a distraction because the NFL doesn't want to come in and do much of anything. It's the NFL 101. The last thing I'll say about this before we get to the Pats-Cowboys pick. What is scary about this, the angle that I don't think a lot of people hone in on, you have 650,000 emails, as we've said. What the NFL just did, in essence, was blackmail every single solitary person that has sent an email to Bruce Allen or Daniel Snyder or anybody else. You saw with Adam Schefter yesterday. If you report on something that the NFL doesn't like, watch out if you have an email. If you are a coach that stands up against the NFL about something, watch out if you have an email. On and on and on. The NFL now has a treasure chest of 650,000 emails. They have the leverage on you. If you cross them, you might be the next Jon Gruden. Let's get to the game pick here.
In most years, Nick, and maybe later on in the season, I would feel better about it. I just think that even if the Patriots keep this game somewhat close, and I think that they will, I just think, like, say the Patriots take a lead or something like that late. Again, I think we're going to be in another situation with, can the Patriots defense get the stop that they need? They're 0 for 3 so far this year in doing that. They didn't have to do it last week in Houston, and I was thinking, like, thank God the offense ran out the clock in that game. So I just don't. If it comes down to it, I don't think they're going to be able to stop the Cowboys. And I think the Cowboys, even if they need it, I think they get a touchdown to win the game. I think that, to me, I think the Cowboys win somewhere in the realm of 3 to 7 points, but I'm gonna take the Cowboys in this game.
It's so tough because I kind of feel the same way you feel, and that happens a lot when we talk about these games. But when you look at it, I think New England can keep it tight, just like they kind of did with Tampa, like they've done with Kansas City in the past. I think they can do enough to keep this game tight. It's just whether or not the mistakes come up, and it's whether or not this defense can, keep them from scoring a late touchdown or field goal to kind of end this game. I could see it be anywhere, like you said, from 3 to 7. I could see it from anywhere, 3 to 10. I'm going to go with Dallas just because I think they're the better team right now. I wouldn't count the Patriots out necessarily, not, far from it, but I'll take Dallas laying the 4 points. BostonSportsJournal.com member question of the day, $39.99 on the annual plan. Check out Mr. Bedard's great video analysis on the coaches film, direct access to him in weekly chats. Again, check him out, BostonSportsJournal.com, $39.99 annual plan. Question for today, Greg.
Yeah, 2 quick hitters from our members. Lars59 said, Greg, didn't Duggar play free safety at Lenoir-Rhyne? This was in response to my breakdown from this game where I talked about Duggar's struggles. Duggar's struggles. Maybe that'll be in his new thing. Maybe we'll just start calling him Duggles on the podcast.
Cuddles
if
for
he
Douglas.
Keeps struggling. Yeah. About his struggles in coverage and things like that. Yes, I think he did. I don't remember, but that doesn't really matter. I mean, it doesn't matter what you, especially at that level. I'm surprised he didn't play like, defensive end at Lenoir-Rhyne, given that level. But it doesn't really matter. He struggles in coverage, and he probably didn't have to cover a whole lot. He certainly didn't have to cover how the Patriots do. And the Patriots, I think the bigger issue is the Patriots are a little bit complicated in their coverages, and he's having a little bit of issue right now. And finally, Emily224, one of our great members, she's always asking questions. And in the comment section, she said, Mac being upright during this game was nice. Is this backup line really worse than the starting offensive line? When the Patriots offensive line is healthy, starting offensive line, yeah. I mean, they have so far this year without Trent Brown. I mean, you put Trent Brown out there, it changes the equation. Even with Isaiah Wynn, if he's struggling at left tackle. I mean, but there's no question you put Wynn, Onwenu, Andrews, Mason, and Trent Brown out there. That is a much better unit than we saw last Sunday. They did a good job. It was a bad defense. McDaniels did a great job scheming it up to make them look better than they were. But yes, you need your starters back. The Patriots need that offensive line to start dominating games. They haven't come close to that yet. And if they don't, they're not going very far this season.
Cowboys, Patriots, 4:25 kickoff on Sunday. Should be a very entertaining game. Go Red Sox. They start tomorrow night. They got Friday and Saturday night. Then they're back on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday if necessary. So go Sox. Enjoy your sports weekend. Be safe. Be good. We'll be back early next week to review the game between the Pats and the Cowboys.